Hello and welcome to FatbossTV, and today we're looking at the Grimrail Depot on the Warlords of Draenor beta.
Yes, and it's the 6th instance to be released, and it's a fucking good instance.
Comparing it to the other 5 man so far, I'd say it's probably my favourite, actually.
100% my favourite. It's just because like the majority of the instance, I'm going to ruin it now. Normally it would be like, oh, wait until you see this. You're on a fucking train, Lawrence.
As in a moving train.
And like all the scenery's moving by you, and you're fighting things on the train, and you can fall off the train and die, and it's... oh my god. It's so good. It's absolutely amazing. But enough of that nonsense, Lawrence. Why are we even on a train?
So the idea of why we're in this instance...
yeah.
Vaguely, because there's not too much information available on this, and there isn't actually a description in the dungeon journal or anything like that about the instance. But we can assume that we are here to stop the delivery of Iron Horde materials and weapons and schematics for even bigger weapons and all that sort of idea. We're here to stop the train.
Yeah.
That's what we're here.
It's like
old
an
Wild West style,
yeah,
blow up the
exactly.
fucking train, Jim West shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what we're here to do, and it's fantastic. But going straight into it, when you actually start the instance, you're not actually on the train yet.
Sadly.
Yeah, you're kind of moving towards like getting on the train before it starts off, and you are met with the first set of trash. And the first set of trash is actually relatively easy to deal with. You got like these larger grunts that are kind of charging about. They seem a bit bugged out because they seem to fly across like half of the room when they charge.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit broken at the moment. But the one main interesting thing is you got these little goblin engineers that go over towards these like iron stars that are in place, and they start casting on them, and if you let the iron star go, it just does a lot of AoE damage to your group. So you do have to keep on top of that, especially if you multi-pull. It can get a bit messy because like you'll have like 6 goblins going out, but if you like CC it properly or make sure you interrupt the iron stars and all that kind of stuff, then you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, this instance doesn't really merit CC though if you compare it to say Skyreach.
Yeah.
The trash will also occasionally like do a casted stun. It's not really too much to deal with. You can in fact dispel it. But that's more or less it. You just have to deal with a few trash packs consisting of those mechanics, and that will bring you towards the first boss.
So the first boss actually consists of 2 bosses. It's with Borka and Rocket Spark, and they do have 2 separate sets of mechanics. So we're going to look at Rocket Spark first. All he does most of the time is just mark 2 players like underneath their feet, and all they have to do is move out of it, because otherwise he'll just do about 60k damage to them. And he just keeps flying around the room, and that's all he does.
Yeah, he just spams it.
Yeah, so you just got to try and move out of it. It does do a fair amount of damage, but every now and then he'll go on top of some boxes, become obscured, and you can't do any damage to him, and he'll completely bombard you with rockets, and you pretty much can't avoid them.
Yeah, so, and because of the nature of this being more or less unavoidable damage, I mean, you can't really predict where it's going to land. You might as well just stand still and take the damage, but it is very, very high. So the healer does need to try and keep on top of it as much as he possibly can. But the cast itself can actually be interrupted by one of the Borka's mechanics, which is Mad Dash. Here it doesn't actually work properly because the boss literally just finished his cast.
Yeah.
Rocket Spark finished his cast. But if done correctly, as you can see here, if you get Mad Dash like pointing in the right direction, it will stop the cast. Rocket Spark will land and will actually take 100% more damage for roughly 6 seconds and be stunned.
Yeah, so it's pretty important to do that, and that's all Borka does. He just goes charging around. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but you just got to make it so it faces the wall or at Rocket Spark. But if you kill one boss before the other, what Rocket Spark will do is that he'll start completely bombarding you without doing that ability, as well as getting a stacking buff on himself that increases the damage by 10%, and it keeps stacking up and up and up. However, if you do kill Rocket Spark first, what Borka does is that he just gets a 50% damage increase. So really, you should try and kill Rocket Spark first if you wanted to kill one of them first, but really you should try and kill them at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all that boss is. But afterwards, you do go up these really cool spiral staircases, and these it's basically these horrible dark iron engineer people, and they're just throwing a bunch of bombs down from the top, and you do have to try and avoid it. It does do a lot of damage, as you can see there. One of our
the damage is pretty nasty.
Yeah, so you do have to try and avoid that. But once you get up to the top, you interact with a chain, as the rogue ran ahead and did, and then the screen starts going black.
And we can assume at this point you would actually get some sort of cinematic. We didn't. There isn't actually any cinematics live in this instance right now. But once you do come from the blackout, you're suddenly...
on a train.
You're in a train. You're in one of the carts.
Yeah, and it's got like all the inventory and stuff, but you can actually look through the skylights, which I thought was a really nice touch, and actually see all of the scenery rolling past. Talking about the trash actually on the train itself is really forgettable. Nothing really happens, but in between carts you get these little open areas, and you can see everything moving past, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there is some trash. I at this point, I was just completely nerdgasming about all the train moving parts and stuff.
I just think it's awesome. There's nothing like this in WoW.
Yeah, so after you clear out a bunch of the carts, you get to the second boss, and this boss definitely makes use of the train. After getting him down to about 78% health, he doesn't really do anything, just wails on the tanks. What he does is that he'll jump off and go into his cannon on the other side, and then this is like the best thing in the whole instance. He'll blow out the sides of it, and you get to see the outside, and you're running along the sides of the train while the wind is blowing you back. And he'll just start spamming a single player. He'll like fixate on them and do a bunch of AoE damage around them while spawning a bunch of adds. These adds themselves, there's like 3 different types. You get these infantry ones that do absolutely fuck all, and you get these grenadiers, and you also get the engineers as well. As I said, the infantry ones are really, really unimportant. However, the grenadiers and the engineers, once they die, you can interact with them. And as you can see here, I picked up some grenades from the grenadiers, an extra action button. It does a ton of damage. It really, really helps out with controlling the adds because they do constantly keep spawning. It's actually really horrible for the tank to pick up, especially if they're fixated because they've got to fuck off behind some like shelves and stuff. But if you do interact with the corpse of the engineer, what you can do is you can go inside one of the cannons you can see around the outside of the room.
And as you can see, you need to really like get inside these cannons because the boss just has a ridiculous amount of health. The cannons will allow you to do a huge amount of damage to the boss. So
Yes.
once you do enter, you hit your number 1 button, which is the only ability that is on your vehicle bar, and you'll hit the boss for an incredible amount of damage, just under 1 million damage.
Yeah, it was between like 900, like the high 900s and 1 mil. So you pretty much got to do 7 of these to the boss. You can damage the boss at the same time, but because you're trying to pick up all these adds and you're trying to avoid all of these horrible fixates and you've got to hide behind the boxes and stuff, it's not a very nice thing to do. So the idea generally of this boss is to constantly clear out the adds with the grenades and keep using the cannons around the side in order to destroy his main cannon.
It's literally just add control, and when you do get fixated, to hide behind the boxes over this side of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all it is.
But it's so cool, like the way that like the sides are opening out and it's blowing you back. The adds aren't affected by the blowback, and I think that'll be a really nice feature as well. So maybe improve the fight. Maybe that'll happen on heroic, but I think it's a really, really nice feature, you being blown back and everything. But after you do the cannons about 7 odd times, like you'll eventually manage to blow up the thing, and the boss will spawn. He'll come back out of the cannon. The adds will stop spawning, and then you just got to deal with the boss. And really, even though the boss has got this cast, it doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah, at this point in the fight, you've pretty much written off the boss, and you're pretty happy to say that the fight is done. However, the boss does have a knockback mechanic at this point, so it's probably a good idea not to tank the boss towards the sides. You want to try and tank him in the middle as much as you possibly can. But at this point, it's pretty much done.
Yeah, you're kind of appreciating the scenery at this point because you get to see everything rolling past. I just want to point out, it's still amazing. It's like the whole instance. This part on the train is just so good. But once you do kill the boss, very simple. Like after it's kind of the damage requirement and the healing requirement for this fight isn't hard. It's just knowing how it works.
And again, just to show you guys, if you do jump off,
yeah, you get ripped pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, so you don't really want to do that. Now, after you do clear the boss, you actually have a part of the instance where it's like a little gauntlet-y area, and you got this like giant like bowl, this cauldron-y thing, spilling fire out either side of it, and you've got to run around the outside. You got like, so it'll do it on one side, so you run and like you run the opposite side in order to get to the other side, because if you do get hit by this, you get a horrible stacking debuff that ticks really, really hard.
As you can see, the mage was actually forced to ice block there. It does hit very, very hard.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that you don't get hit by it. After you have dealt with that, you move on to this next pack of trash, which is incredibly nasty.
Yeah, it is really, really horrible. We learned this the hard way by, you know, like in the true fashion of every 5-man, let's see what happens if we pull everything. Can we do it? Because to be honest, with all the other trash you could, and then you suddenly are met with this pretty vicious set of trash. The thing is that you can actually single pull this and like do some CC and stuff. I think that's what you're probably supposed to do, because we get completely wrecked, like horribly. But I think it's quite like a nice sort of thing. Yeah, you can see we
just got completely destroyed.
It's horrible.
But the idea with this trash generally is just to make sure that you do take it one-on-one, and then eventually, once you have done it, you'll be faced with the last boss. However, it's completely not obvious where the last boss is going to spawn. It actually does spawn in the room which you've just cleared, but as you can see, half of our raid did actually get locked off. But the boss spawn animation,
It's very, very cool. I don't really understand how it works because, of course, he only spawns once, and we were like, yeah, we're dead. Yeah. I imagine you're supposed to be in the other area, like hiding or something.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to be sort of where the blue marker is, as you can see.
Yeah.
We should have been there, but yeah. We reformed, came back in, and we did eventually come to him without him destroying us. But this boss, little bit uninspired, but it does have some really, I think it just looks great.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking boss, not a very difficult boss. The main mechanic that, like, the actual boss himself does, he throws out these traps that will root you for 6 seconds, which is bad because his mount is constantly spreading electric fire on the floor. And he keeps doing these round trips and just adding more and more fire, but the fire does despawn after. So he doesn't, look, you can see he does his new trip, and of course that area has been opened up.
But yeah, if you do actually stand in the trap, you are rooted for 6 seconds, as well as taking some damage. So if you do accompany that with the actual Drake flying down, which happened to me and you because you weren't looking and you just
I was looking at everything else, man. It was beautiful. But yeah, we got...
Well, I can understand that. But yeah, we both got stuck in it, and it does do a fair amount of damage. So that would probably be the thing that kills you on this fight. But apart from those two mechanics, literally the trap on the ground and the lightning coming down, there isn't a whole lot more to this fight, which is a little bit disappointing. It just looks beautiful, and of course, having to do all this movement and dodge certain things is a fun mechanic.
Yeah.
And this fight wasn't boring to participate in.
No, definitely not.
But it is very, very simple, and there isn't a lot to it. But we're hoping that maybe on Heroic, that there'll be some extra mechanics that make this interesting. But once you have killed the boss, you're supposed to hit a cinematic, and you're now in some crash site. So we can assume...
a mission accomplished.
Yeah, a mission accomplished. You stop the train by somehow killing the boss, which then made the train blow up off the side of a mountain cliff.
Something like that. We'll see it in the cutscene. It's not
sure yet.
But I must say, this instance, just because of the train and the moving scenery, it's an amazing experience. Like, for a 5-man, you got to remember, this is a 5-man, not like a whole raid setting. This is more interesting than any raid setting I've ever been in.
Yeah, I'd agree, actually.
It is, like, just the actual setting of the instance is, like, the only really cool thing. Maybe, like, having more mechanics. I thought the second boss used, like, really nice mechanics.
Yeah, I thought the second boss was nice because it was almost phased. There was 3 different phases to the boss fight, although the first phase he did nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
But either way, it was interesting the way that you fighted him progressively, rather than just, here's the boss, here's the mechanics, fight him.
Yeah.
It was sort of, you felt like you were almost adventuring different areas, especially with the sides flapping down. Really, really cool. The last boss room as well, I think, again, like I said, the mechanics are a little limited, but it's still very open world. You can see all the shit flying past you. It's really, really good. I just love it. I just wish we could really see those cinematics, and of course, we'll have to wait for those.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think with the last boss as well, the one thing that it fails to do is use the fact that you're on a train. That could easily be done in a room somewhere, or like on a platform somewhere. Like, whereas the second boss, that can really only be done on a train, really. It feels like, it really feels like it uses the train, whereas the last boss, it doesn't really use the train to its full
you
potential.
could be in a flat white box room.
Exactly.
And it'd be exactly the same. But it's cool either way.
Yeah, very, very, very good.
So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you would like to see the other 5-man dungeons of the Warlords of Draenor beta so far, which maybe aren't as epic as this one, but it's still very, very good, do click up on the annotations you see on your screen now. They'll take you straight to those videos. And of course, we'll always see you on the live stream. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.